A wild trade deadline edition of the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A on tap for today. It's been a crazy deadline to be sure, which I think was kind of expected given the weirdness around COVID, the shortened season and all that, but it lived up to the hype and we are ready to play some baseball for today. So let's dive on in, answer some questions and get you set for tonight's 7-game MLB DFS slate. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to break down a 7-game main slate for tonight with lock set for 7:05. And as mentioned this morning in the solo shot, even though it's a shorter slate with just 7 games, it is a loaded slate at pitcher. We got Shane Bieber, Garrett Cole, Lucas Giolito, Tyler Glasnow, and Max Fried. All these pitchers are in play. All of them are expensive. You do have to pay the piper to get them on your team, but still worth it, at least to me. And I think that the way we're going to view this slate depends on the contest type you are playing in. So be sure to get your questions in, whether you're watching this on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. It does not matter. You can send those questions in. We'll try to answer as many as we can here on the stream. We can talk some pitchers. We can talk stacks. We can talk one-offs as lineups start to come out throughout this hour, and also talk about value plays or process for MLB DFS too. So whatever your question may be, get those in, and we'll try to start answering those here in just 1 second. Overall thoughts from a pitching perspective for today. I think, like I said, it's pretty wide open. You can easily defend using any of those top 5 pitchers for today. But my favorite one from a cash game perspective is Garrett Cole. He did get knocked around his last time out by the Braves, let up like a bunch of super long home runs, but the strikeout rate is still there. He is the one guy in this top 5 who is pitching at home for tonight. I like that. The opposing Tampa Bay Rays more than willing to strike out, a 24% strikeout rate against righties this year, and Cole doesn't walk any guys. That adds up really well from a cash game perspective. So for cash games, I have Garrett Cole at the top of my list. If you're doing a single entry tournament lineup, you can use just one of these pitchers. I kind of lean towards Lucas Giolito. My expectation initially was that Giolito would be super popular today because he's coming off a no-hitter. The problem is that he's on the road and facing the Twins, and the Twins carry this perception as being a really good offense. Now, the more I've thought about this, the more I think that Giolito may still wind up being pretty popular for tonight. I think that Shane Bieber will probably be the number 1 pitcher from a popularity perspective, and Garrett Cole, going to carry that Yankees tax where a Yankees player always comes with additional popularity. But I think that Giolito, if I had to guess, a 15 to 20% roster rate, that's higher than I initially expected, but that's also not that bad. So I would say for single entry tournaments, still going Giolito as my number 1 pitcher. If you're doing multi-entry tournaments, I would go Cole first there, followed by Giolito and then Bieber. But I think that it does depend on contest type. Let's get some questions here over on YouTube, starting off with Alvin. Any change to your stack rankings from this morning? Okay, so on the solo shot this morning, we talked about how the Rockies were the number 1 stack for today. I also liked the Braves and the Phillies. Those were kind of the main allures from a stacking perspective. And then the White Sox were number 4. I think I am going to stick with that order for today. The one potential change I could make would depend on what the Rockies lineup looks like once it comes out. Because if the Rockies give us enough value plays, I could see them potentially climbing up my rankings. I did like the Phillies a little bit more personally, a little bit this morning, but I could see them changing a little bit here if we can get a couple of value plays. We have Raimel Tapia, I would assume, will be batting leadoff. The question is kind of Daniel Murphy because he's missed the past couple of games. I don't know if it's been injury related or not, but he is sat. He's $3,100. If we get Tapia, Murphy, and then Ryan McMahon all batting at decent spots in the order, that's an affordable stack, even if you decide to go with Cole or Giolito as your pitcher. So the Rockies could grade out even better than they were this morning. So potential upside there for the Rockies. But I think overall, stacks staying pretty stagnant for me today. Mateo, I like Shane Bieber tonight. I do too. My question is, which White Sox bats do you like against the lefty Rich Hill? So let's go through this, Mateo, under the assumption that you are using Shane Bieber. And if you're using Shane Bieber, the salary there is $12,000, which means you got to try to find some value hitters within this White Sox lineup. And I think the obvious ones, at least to me, the places I always go here are Yasmani Grandal and Edwin Encarnacion. We plug in Shane Bieber, we're going to have like $28.75 left, I think. Yep, $28.75. If we go here and check out the Chicago White Sox, if we plug in both Encarnacion and Grandal, we still have to scramble elsewhere to try to make sure we have enough salary on the table to get to Shane Bieber, but it does make it at least a little bit easier. So I would say, Mateo, if you're going with Shane Bieber, I would say lock in Grandal and Encarnacion and then kind of build. No, it's either the White Sox lineup is out yet. We can give you some more definitive answers on those value options, and it is not out yet. So no definitive answers, but I would assume that Encarnacion and Grandal will be in there. They're kind of like the two guys you can depend upon for value within the White Sox lineup. You could go Nick Madrigal. I don't tend to favor Madrigal from a DFS perspective because he's not the highest upside guy. So Madrigal probably not going to be a focal point for me, but he is at least an option if you want to give yourself additional wiggle room, but not someone who really fits my process all that well for DFS. Gregory, home run call of the night. Obvious and an under-the-radar call, please. Thanks, and you rock. Okay, so let's do the obvious one first. I think the most obvious one is probably going to come from Coors Field because A, it's Coors Field, and B, I do think that the situation is pretty good for the Rockies facing Garrett Richards. So I would go Trevor Story if we're going fully obvious here. Richards doesn't seem to have like the biggest splits. Like we can go with the righties against him. So I'm going to go Trevor Story for my obvious one. Let's try to dig in here, try to find a less obvious one. I think the White Sox will be less obvious. I know we were just talking about them, but I think that they will be less obvious, but they can absolutely destroy left-handed pitching, and they're facing Rich Hill. So I think I might have called for Edwin Encarnacion 2-homer game like a couple or at some point last week. I'm pretty sure I called for an Edwin Encarnacion double dong. Obviously, we did not get that. I don't think he has. Yeah, he's a 2-homer game there, but that was not the time. So I'm going to go Encarnacion as my less obvious one because he's not at Coors Field, but he is facing the lefty. So give me Encarnacion and Story as the homer calls for tonight. Austin, who do you think is the most reliable cheap stack since pitchers are so expensive? I don't know if there actually is a reliable lower salaried stack. Like if there were, I would have been probably pretty high in them from a stacking perspective this morning, but I honestly don't view – most of the stacks that I like for today are the stacks that are like a lot of mid-range players, and that's not going to save you a ton. I would say that the Braves, if you're willing to go a little bit deeper in the order, can potentially be that because we're going to get Nick Markakis in there for sure. We'll get either Adam Duvall or Matt Adams. Duvall is 23, Adams is 25. If you lock in those two guys and then go with like Ozuna and Swanson, that's a decently low salaried stack. Like it's not huge. You're not going to be able to coast from there on out as a result of that, but it does help a little bit at least. I think you could consider the Nationals as well, skipping over Trey Turner and Juan Soto, obviously. Against Spencer Howard, his first 3 starts in the majors have been just kind of okay. They haven't been all that great. They have not been terrible by any means either, but I think you could consider, some of these middle-of-the-order guys for the Nationals, depending on who ends up catching. You make a Kurt Suzuki in there. So I would say the Braves have some value guys. The Nationals do too. Those would be the first places I would look if you're looking for true value, because I don't think the Phillies count for that anymore because most of their guys, again, in that mid-range. But I think, Austin, the way I'm going to play this is just pepper that mid-range, avoid the studs, and just use a lot of players with salaries between like $2,700 and $3,300. I think that's probably where I'm going to wind up living for tonight. DJ on Facebook. Will players like Clevenger have the same money value being that he is now a Padre? So from a salary perspective, I would expect Clevenger's salary to potentially even go up just because he has a better park factor now than he had previously. San Diego tends to be a bit cooler, whereas Cleveland has a pretty good park factor. So the next time we see Clevenger on a slate, which could be pretty soon, honestly, because he was scheduled to start tomorrow for Cleveland, like he's probably going to carry a decently high salary. Let's see where San Diego is. Okay, so San Diego is on the road in Coors. I guess they're not tomorrow because the Giants are there tomorrow. Where are the Padres tomorrow? Maybe they don't play tomorrow. Regardless, next time we see Clevenger, I would expect his salary to go up. So that would be the way I'd do that. Before we had a question earlier that I may have missed out. It's from Chadwick. Cole giving up hard contact, but you want it for cash. Yes. So look here, 47% hard for Garrett Cole. Mentioned that I think he literally broke records for the amount of hard contact that he had allowed, or the number of long home runs he allowed in his most recent start. But the reason that I do like him is that he's facing a Rays team that has a lower hard hit rate, a lower fly ball rate, and will strike out. And that's a good formula for cash. He's also at home, so that should inflate his strikeout rate. So I do think that Garrett Cole is in play for cash. But you're right. Like, the hard contact is concerning, but I'm still okay with it. Going back over to YouTube here, talking to Alvin. Since we're halfway through the season for most teams, do we still focus on 19 stats or more focused on this season? So Alvin, very good question. We had talked about this previously, but if you look at my numbers here on this sheet, all of these from the team-wide perspective are now from 2020 alone. I had been going with combined stats from 2019 through 2020. I am now looking at 2020 alone because I think that we've got a large enough sample, because WRC Plus is the only results-based number on this sheet. So I would have some skepticism of that number specifically, like the White Sox are not going to have a 167 WRC Plus against lefties for the full year, but we can believe in hard hit rate, fly ball rate, strikeout rate, and walk rate. So for me, I would say as long as you're focused on the right numbers, now is the time to make that switch and go with 2020 numbers versus 2019 numbers. Alvin has also got, Adams has been designated for assignment. That's so sad. Well, alas. Nicholas, Thames with a dinger yesterday, $2,300 hitting cleanup. Okay, so that means that the Nationals lineup is out. So let's pull this one up here and see what the Nationals lineup looks like. They are facing, I guess, not updated on this sheet yet. So we can't see what the Nationals are doing, but if Thames does wind up hitting leadoff, that would be tremendous. I guess I haven't seen their lineup yet. Let me pull up a different source here and see if I can see the Nationals lineup. I'm on my computer, because if I run Twitter on my other computer, it actually slows it way down. So we're running this on the other one so I can check out the lineup here, because it looks like Baseball Press might not be updating. Okay, so the Braves lineup is out. That one was interesting. Oh, Austin Riley is batting fifth for them. Nick Markakis is batting fourth. So actually even a better lineup from a value perspective than I thought they would be. So that's definitely interesting. It doesn't appear as if the Nationals lineup is out yet. Once it is, though, I think if we can get Eric Thames anywhere in the order, that would definitely be intriguing. So a lot of movements so far. There have been additional trades that have been announced just since we went on the air here today. So, wow, there are like 16 different trades. Okay, so I'm probably going to say something that sounds very stupid at some point in here. And we'll see how this goes. Yeah, so Nicholas clarified that he was hitting cleanup yesterday. So if he's there again, I'll certainly take it. And $2,300 for a guy who can make some hard contact, that would work for me. DJ, is Sixto Sanchez's salary ever going to be raised based on his last two performances? I don't know. I don't know what the algorithm is for setting salaries, but I would assume that it would be. He's not on the slate for today, so I guess I don't know what his salary is now. But usually performance leads to increased salaries, so the answer there is probably going to be yes. Over on Periscope, Young Zeke 291, I'm going to throw a pitcher out to you all. Spencer Howard. Yeah, so let's go into Spencer Howard here, because I think that, honestly, Young Zeke, you can kind of make a case for using Howard as your pitcher or for stacking against him. I think especially because the salaries on the Nationals are so low, you can definitely feel better about going at them. But Howard, like you alluded to, Young Zeke, he had good numbers last year in Double-A, 31% strikeout rate, 7% walk rate, a 14.4% swinging strike rate. The reason that I am, if you force me to choose between using Howard as my pitcher or stacking against him, the reason I would choose stacking against him is that we do have 3 starts to sample in the big leagues, and his sample last year at Double-A was just 6 starts, and it was Double-A versus big league pitchers or big league hitters. 9.2% swinging strike rate for Howard in his 3 starts. That's a lower number, and the results have also been just kind of underwhelming so far. So to me, I would say if I'm choosing between Howard as a pitcher or stacking against him, I'm going to stack against him. Now, if I'm ranking the pitchers for tonight, Howard is number 6. He is the pitcher I am 6th most willing to use, because a lot of the other guys don't really do a whole lot once you get past Max Fried. After Max Fried, yeah, give me Spencer Howard after that. But I think I'd rather stack against him, especially given the value we can get in stacking the Nationals within that lineup. Self213 over on YouTube. What did you think of Eric Gonzalez today? He's playing shortstop. So I probably am not going to get there. There we go. I guess he's Okay, so facing Brent Suter. Suter is going to be like kind of an opener for the Brewers for today. So I'm honestly not super interested in any of the Pirates batters. I don't tend to use Pirates batters in general because they don't have a lot of power. Now, the good thing for Gonzalez is that he's $2,200 and he is likely, like you said, to back leadoff. I don't think that lineup is out as of yet, at least not based on this source, but that could be behind. So Gonzalez likely to bat leadoff, $2,200. That definitely does work, but that lineup just kind of, it's really blah. And by blah, I mean bad, I guess. Like if we're going to be like straight up about it, like they don't have any power and I need some power. I also think the Brewers bullpen, they could trade Josh Hader. I guess I didn't see when I was scrolling through some things to see if he'd been traded. It doesn't appear he's been traded. So I guess that definitely makes a bullpen game a bit more daunting as well. So I think that I'm not super inclined to go at any Pirates. I mean, maybe you decide to go at Gonzalez, but not the biggest power profile. He doesn't really steal that many bases. So personally, I would be avoiding that unless you get super desperate and need someone to fill shortstop who is super cheap. Maybe he checks both those boxes. But outside of that, I am not tempted. Alvin, would you rank the Nats above Cleveland or the White Sox? No, I would not rank them above the White Sox unless your sole intent is to save salary. Cleveland is interesting. They're facing Brad Keller. Keller is a guy who kind of the one thing he does well is get ground balls, but his ground ball rate goes down against lefties, and Cleveland's offense has a lot of left-handed batters. So I think it does depend on the lineup. No Yasmani Grandal tonight. That is heartbreaking. Well, we tried. It probably means that James McCann is starting. I think that he's probably pretty cheap. I'm getting on a tangent here, but McCann is 27, so actually even better. Okay, so we'll take that. So James McCann, $2,700, that certainly works. But I think from a Cleveland perspective, I think they're kind of okay. Maybe I would go with the Nationals over Cleveland, but it's pretty close either way. I think, let's go Nationals over Cleveland from a stack ranking perspective for tonight. A question from Cody about Max Kepler. I would not. He's facing Lucas Giolito. Lucas Giolito is quite good. Just threw a no-hitter his last time out. And we talked about this morning, but this Twins offense is really struggling. They've had a ton of injuries. Obviously, that doesn't affect Max Kepler as much as the entire lineup. But what it does do is it increases the appeal of Giolito. And if we get batters lower in the order who aren't generating hits, aren't turning the lineup over, aren't getting on base, that also does impact Max Kepler because it means he'll come to the dish fewer times, and it means they'll have fewer batters on base for him when he does come to the dish. So I think that Kepler is a pretty easy avoid for tonight. Again, I think that Giolito is a tremendous option. 2.88 skill interactive ERA. This is in his past 4 starts, so he's been throwing a slider more often. 38% strikeout rate, and this Twins team has a 25% strikeout rate. That's sneakily pretty high. It's a lot higher than where they were last year. I know that they've had a lot of injuries, and that's a reason for that. But, the guys who are injured and who are causing that strikeout rate to go up aren't back yet. Josh Donaldson's not back yet. Mitch Garver's not back. There's no Byron Buxton. So this is a good matchup for Lucas Giolito based on the way this Twins team currently looks. And as a result of that, I think that Giolito is going to be a key piece for tonight. And again, if I have one single entry tournament lineup, Giolito very likely to be the pitcher that I use when I'm doing so. Okay, so the Braves lineup is in. I wonder if it was in when I refreshed my tabs. Let's see if we can build a stack here of the Braves. Okay, so we can do this. Let's keep Shane Bieber in there just because he is the upper limit from a salary perspective. We've got Nick Markakis batting cleanup. I mentioned before that I'm kind of into him. I know that he's really boring, actively boring from a DFS perspective because he doesn't hit a ton of fly balls, but making decent contact this year, batting fourth in a stack that we like. We'll go Markakis. Austin Riley, $2,400. Adam Duvall, $2,300. If you do that, Shane Bieber gets really affordable really quickly. So I think the Braves, because of their lineup, are suddenly a pretty good stack for today. Obviously, it hurts not to have Acuna, and that is a downgrade for the offense as a whole, but it also does give us additional value. So I would say if you're looking for a value stack, suddenly the Braves shape up as being that stack. Now, Austin Riley strikes out a lot, so it's not like I'm saying he is this tremendous option, But, given his situation, I think that he definitely does work. The strikeout rate's been coming down at least. It's still not good, but it's coming down. So Riley definitely works. Duvall, lots of fly balls, lots of strikeouts too. So, that's always a concern. But facing that Red Sox bullpen, I'm not as worried about strikeouts as usual. Alvin mentioned that Markakis is a double machine. Yes, he very much is that, but it's resulted in, he's gotten good results this year. It's a small sample, so always have skepticism of results in a small sample, but putting the ball in play, making decent contact, getting good results, batting cleanup for $2,600 in a stack that I like, I'll take that. Again, it's not the highest upside situation, and I don't use Nick Markakis in DFS hardly ever, but I think on this specific slate where I want to spend up a pitcher and I want to stack the Braves, he does check enough boxes where I can at least get there, even if he is not my favorite batter to use from a DFS perspective. So he's there, just not my normal profile, but I think he does work. Kevin is asking, single entry FanDuel plays. So again, I think I like Lucas Giolito from a pitching perspective. From a stacks perspective, I like the White Sox there because I think that people, rightfully so, have a high opinion of Rich Hill. Rich Hill's velocity has been down this year from where it was last year. It's actually been down ever since he came back from injury at the end of last year. The velocity's been down, and he's been walking a lot of batters. So he's going to put guys on base, and this White Sox team, as we've seen this entire season, can blast left-handed pitching to the moon. So I think that when you give me Hill in a state where he's not getting a lot of strikeouts and is walking a lot of batters against a team that is as good versus lefties as the White Sox are, I think it makes a lot of sense to go at them. So I think that if you want to go with a single entry lineup, I think that Lucas Giolito makes sense a pitcher, but then also stacking his White Sox teammates with him is a pretty fun way to go. So I think that that's the way I'm leaning for tonight. If I were doing a single entry, for some reason the White Sox lineup is not refreshing. Aha, there we go. Okay, Encarnacion, McCann. Let's check out Danny Mendick, see if we can get anything out of this, because he is batting seventh. That's high enough to be considered at least, but we'll see here. Okay, so Danny Mendick, check out the numbers for this year. 33% hard hit rate, that's pretty low. Not the biggest isolated slugging, not a lot of stolen bases, so I might not want to get to Mendick, but if you can make the White Sox work while using McCann and Encarnacion, I find that pretty enticing for tonight. John got here late. White Sox, your favorite team play tonight. So actually, they're more of like an under-the-radar type play. They are my number 4 stack of the slate. I do think that the Rockies are a good option. I think the Phillies are a good option. And I like the Braves. So they're number 4 for me. But if you're looking for just like an under-the-radar type team, I thought they'd be under the radar. But based on the number of questions we've gotten about the White Sox, maybe I'm just totally off on that. So maybe the White Sox are not going to be contrarian. Their team total is 4.65. I wouldn't expect that to lead to a ton of popularity. So I still think that they will probably be a bit under the radar. So yeah, I'm still in on the White Sox as being under the radar, but straight up, they're my 4th ranked stack for tonight. Twitch question. Do you think Cole over Giolito tonight is sharp contrarian or dumb contrarian? That's a great question. I love that question. I think that, like, I have it, like, if I'm not even thinking about being contrarian, I have Cole as my favorite play for cash games. And there I'm not trying to be contrarian. I'm just trying to be, like, to play things straight up, because I still think that there's a lot of value in a pitcher at home versus on the road. If you look at the numbers this year for starting pitchers, the league-wide strikeout rate for starters at home is 2 percentage points higher than it is on the road. So I still see value personally in Garrett Cole being at home. And the Rays, not the most imposing offense. They've been better than the Twins so far this year, so maybe you think that's a better matchup for Cole over Giolito. But personally, I would put Cole over Giolito straight up, and that's not trying to be contrarian. That's just like the way I have them straight up. So it might be dumb contrarian, but I would be part of that dumb contrarian movement. I think that Giolito is my preferred play for a single entry lineup, because I think that when things boil down to it, Cole is going to be more popular than Giolito. So for single entry, I want Giolito. For overall tournaments, I want Cole. I don't know. It could be dumb contrarian. It very well could be, but I think that's just the way the numbers lead me for tonight. So that's the way I am leaning. Final question here from Corey Jordan, my favorite stack of the night. I am going to stick with the Phillies here. I think that the matchup with Eric Fetty is really attractive. So Phillies I think the Rockies obviously work, but they're harder to afford, especially if you wind up going with Bieber or Giolito. So I will go with the Philadelphia Phillies as my number one stack. That is all the time that we have for today. But as always, I do want to thank you all for tuning in and asking really good questions throughout the entire stream, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. All good questions, and I appreciate all the interaction as always. Be sure to remember to subscribe wherever you are watching this, if it's on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, to get notifications as we go live each and every day at 4 p.m. Eastern. We also have the Solo Shot recording live at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can check us out there if you want to get the audio before it gets posted on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Also tomorrow at 10 a.m., Brandon Gadul and I are breaking down PGA DFS for the Tour Championship, which tees off on Thursday. It's a unique format, so a lot to juggle there from a DFS perspective. We'll be tackling that live at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. If you have questions for me, I am on Twitter at JimSanis, JimSaNnes. Thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck with your DFS lineups for tonight. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.